Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs.
Bows and TKOs. We are live, episode 143, coming at you from the Valley. I'm your host, Shane Gillette, for this weekly MMA podcast, streaming anywhere you listen to your podcasts with videos on YouTube. A little bit of a lighter show this week. We will talk about PFL Belfast RAF 8, recap UFC Winnipeg, and preview this weekend's Apex card. But there's a lot going on in the sports world. My Colorado Avalanche 1-0 in the first round. Stanley Cup favorites. They better get a chip. Their team's all in right now. Rocking my Steelers gear. The draft is Thursday. It's Tuesday right now. In Pittsburgh. A loaded year for picks. A make-or-break year, you could say, for Pittsburgh, as we are searching for a quarterback situation. But this year's draft class has not panned out, so I'm interested to see how many picks they trade for the next year. My Angels are slowly, steady, hovering around 500. It's beautiful here, like mid to high 80s on average, so your boy can't complain. But we're going to get into it and talk MMA. We have some fights that have been announced. Before we do this, let's see if there's any new ones today. Tuesday's Matchmaker Day. So usually there's a good amount of fights announced Tuesdays. It's making me log in. Let me go to my phone. And I've said this before. You'll see a lot of social media accounts that are trying to break news. They do shit before bouts are signed, or maybe where they hear some smoke and they just announce it. The guy I trust is Marcel Dorf. I think he's from like Netherlands or something like that. Once he's announced it, it's official. So that's who I go off of. Nothing new since earlier today. But we have a couple matchups for June 6th. We have Bryce Mitchell and Victor Henry. Great to see Bryce back in the octagon. It's been a while. We get Marcus McGee taking on Jacob Wilklax. And then for UFC 329, we have Damian Pinas taking on Cesar Almeida. And then Corey Sandhagen against Mario Bautista. This is really a rematch from when Mario first came onto the scene in the UFC. Big things at stake. This will be International Fight Week, my birthday weekend in Las Vegas. Other roster news, Shamrock and Pedro Munoz officially off the UFC roster. No surprise by Shamrock, and I think Pedro, still under contract with the UFC, had asked for his release, and they have given him that. So now he could go compete elsewhere. But we had PFL Belfast this past weekend. Nothing too fantastic here. Big win by J.J. Wilson via round one knockout over Dara Kelly, taking it to him. Former UFCer Reese McKee with a unanimous decision over Alex Lahore. We had Dovlet Yagshimuradov with a unanimous decision over Tyson Pedro, who's been out for quite some time. Ex-UFCer Colin Logren with a round one submission via face crank over Alan Philpott. And then Pedro Carvalho with a unanimous decision over Sergio Casio. Nice finish by JJ. Rather than that, I caught some highlights, but, again, I've given the PFL a million chances. Nothing that really jumps off the screen. I would have rather watched UFC Winnipeg every day of the week. Then we had RAF 8. Took a little hit right before the week of as Henry Cejudo pulled out due to injury. So his bout with Merab Dvalishvili off. So Merab taking some time before he makes his RAF debut. We had Jason Nolf, Penn State alum, with a big 11-2 win over Joey Blaze, NCAA champion, I believe, recently. Former ASU alum Zahid Valencia, 8-2 over Aoden Sinclair. And then the biggest match of the day, Kyle Snyder with a 12-6 victory over Rizabek Atmukan. RAF has announced that they've signed Khamzat Chimaev. I would love to see Khamzat and Kyle Snyder go at it in freestyle wrestling. And then we had Arman Tsarukyan with a tech fall dominating victory 13-1. At least Uriah got one against Uriah Faber. And Arman going viral again, going for a takedown, having a single, Uriah bouncing backwards on one leg, takes him off the entire mat. This is probably like a 4-foot elevated mat straight under Uriah's back on the concrete. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. But Uriah away uninjured, thank goodness. But Arman, come on, man. You can't be taking it to an old dude like that, an OG of the sport. But he keeps dominating. Hopefully we could give Arman some competition for once. But this weekend, UFC Winnipeg got it taken to me on the picks. I went 4-6 overall. So overall, I'm 869 wins, 425 losses, 13 no contest draws, still doubled up. And on the year, still solid, 89 wins, 35 losses, 2 no contests and draws. Now, there was plenty of action on this card. You kind of needed it because you did not want to let it go to the judges' scorecards. There was some sketchy judging, a terrible decision in the J.J. Aldrich fight. We had another kind of chaotic heavyweight bout between Tanner and Gokhan. That was bonkers. A lot of fun, spurred the violence throughout the day. We had 3 first-round finishes in the prelims. And then Mike Malott dominated as Captain Canada. Canadians overall, not a great day, going 4-5. But the card overall over-delivered. I think I had previewed this like a 4 out of 10. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10 because it was action-packed. There were some fights we did not break down. We had John Yanis with a round 1 TKO over Jamie Sarah. We had Gokhan Sarakam with a round 2 knockout over Tanner Boser. I mean, these guys went at it just like Blades and Hokit. Tanner Boser rocking Gokhan early. Gokhan coming back into the second round. Tanner doing very well, moving up from light heavyweight with the time off. Hopefully he gets another shot. And then how about Marcio Barbosa, Contender Series alum, dominant round 1 knockout over a solid Dennis Bazukja. Performance of the night, 100 G's to Marcio. And then we had another pretty chaotic fight where both men rocked each other. Jai Herbert with a round 1 knockout over Mandel Nalo. And Mandel, pretty long and lengthy for the weight class, had Jai on skates, had him rocked up against the cage. He was just trying to find the back door. And then he sat in the pocket with some counter shots and put Nalo on his ass and got the finish. But we're going to kick it off in the main card. We had Gage Young with a split decision victory over Thiago Moises. This is a fight I got wrong. I also missed the Jai Herbert, Tanner Boser fights. But round 1, both fighters were patient. You know, Thiago was able to chop at Gage's calf, was able to engage in some grappling with him. And Thiago had him in some bad positions, but I think he must have tired himself out by going so wrestling heavy in round 1. Because round 2, Thiago just kind of stood there. He didn't have any head movement, waited for Gage to come to him, threw some big power hooks, but really didn't do shit overall. And Gage had some success, but he was just throwing in bunches and was forcing Thiago backwards against the cage. You know, Thiago, been through some wars, 31 years old, in the middle of his prime. We can't be gassed out after 5 minutes, no matter what the pace is. And, I'm not fully sure if he was unhealthy, bad weight cut or what, but it just didn't look like the Thiago I was expecting. Round 3, it was all Young. He had Thiago rocked a few times, and Moises was basically sitting on his butt scooting jiu-jitsu style. And again, I just don't understand. Thiago really is talented. He trains at ATT. He's in the middle of the year, in the middle of his prime, the start of his prime, really. Took a year off. I just thought a pathetic showcase. Good for Gage to expose him. He'll be on to some big competition now. But I was very disappointed by Thiago Moises. Statistically, Thiago landed 49 total strikes, 48 of them significant. He only got 2 takedowns in 15 attempts, with 2 minutes and 33 seconds of control time. And Gage landed 118 total, so more than doubled, 116 of them significant. He had a reversal, a knockdown, and 1 minute and 7 seconds of control time. So Gage now extends his winning streak to 2. He's 2-1 in the UFC. And Thiago extends his losing streak to 2. He is 2-3 since 2024. So what's next? I think Gage good performance here. Looks like he's going to be more of a striking heavy offensive fighter. I think we should give him a good stylistic matchup. And a veteran matchup against Michael Johnson, I think, would be a ton of fun. Two guys with quick hands. And Thiago, honestly, he could be at risk of being cut after that performance. But if he's not, how about a matchup with Matt Frivola? Moving on. We had Jasmine Jasudavicius with a unanimous decision over Karine Silva. And this fight kind of played out the way I expected. Jasmine was striking herself into takedown attempts and finishing them. In the first round, she took Silva down, but Silva was able to get her deep in her guard and was able to tie up Jasmine. She had some real submission threats from her back, and she was actually landing some nice elbows and damage from her back. But Jasmine wasn't able to create any space after she got the takedown, kind of being trapped in her guard, and she got no offense of her own thrown in. So it was a very close round. I would say Karine even potentially took the round. Well, rounds 2 and 3, Jasmine was able to get into half guard instead of full guard when she took Karine down. She did land some nice ground and pound. It was pretty conservative game plan by Jasmine. She mentioned this after the fight, but she controlled the fight. You know, Silva tried desperation submissions from her back, but you can't be taken down that easily. Very hard fought, close fight, pretty good showcase, but Jasmine got Canada on the board. Statistically, Jasmine landed 72 total, only 18 significant. She had 3 takedowns in 5 attempts with 8 minutes and 9 seconds of control time, so controlled more than a round and a half. And Karine landed 88 total strikes, but only 15 of them significant. A lot of her strikes thrown were from the back, and she had 2 submission attempts. So Jasmine starts a new winning streak. She's 6-1 since 2024. She stays at number 7 in the rankings. And Karine extends her losing streak to 2. She's 2-3 since 2024 and stays at number 9. So what's next? I think the matchup to make is Jasmine and Erin Blanchfield, as I believe she deserves to fight up. And there really isn't a clear opponent for Erin, so she's going to have to fight somebody. And for Karine, how about Miranda Maverick in her return from knee injury? Then in the co-main, fight of the night, I knew this would be a fun one. We had Charles Jourdain with a unanimous decision over Kyler Phillips. 100 G's to Charles Jourdain and Kyler Phillips. And this is a fight I picked wrong. I did think it was a coin flip. But this fight was an absolute chaotic pace. You kind of expect that coming in. But in the start of the fight, Kyler was wanting to take advantage of his offensive wrestling. We have been known that Charles has showcased weaknesses there. And he was able to handle the fight there, get in half guard in the first round. You know, Charles did a really good job scrambling very wildly, never, just sitting on his back, scooting to a hip, putting a leg up, doing anything he could, and throwing up some submissions. But Kyler was never really in trouble, definitely took round 1. Well, much like Thiago Moises, round 2, Kyler really slowed down. And Charles just started walking him down, throwing strikes from everywhere, those flying knees, spinning attacks. You know, I didn't really agree with some of the bad flying knees and kicks he did because it gave Kyler takedown opportunities. But Charles was more active, landed more. It was 1-1 with a winner takes all round 3. And in round 3, it was a mix of Charles continuing to throw wild shit, not landing very cleanly, but Kyler just looking exhausted. You know, he kept trying to get desperation takedowns to chill Jourdain out because the pace was intense. The final minute and a half, Charles just had more left in the tank. He continued pressuring Kyler. And of course, the final round was chaotic. Nobody really did have a big advantage, but I did think Charles threw more, and Kyler was bloodied up from a cut and looked like he was wearing damage. I think that went to the judge's decision. But Charles, coming down to bantamweight in his prime, clearly in the best shape of his life. It looks like he could have fought 5 rounds this way. And he's a solid fighter. I just still haven't really seen him improve with his grappling defense, and his fighting IQ definitely plays into his weaknesses. Kyler could have took advantage, and he did, but he just was gassed out by round 2. And just for Charles, like, hey, you're walking him down, you're landing strikes. Why are we doing random flying knees from too far away and some crazy shit that leaves you open? And on the other end, Kyler, again, you can't be gassing out. You're 30 years old. You're in your prime. you should be prepared to go 15 minutes no matter what. So I was underwhelmed with that cardio. But big win for Charles, tough loss for Kyler, a former ranked opponent, fighter in the bantamweight division. Now he's going to have to really earn his way back. Statistically, Kyler landed 50 total strikes, 44 of them significant. He did have 7 takedowns and 13 attempts. You know, he had a couple in round 1. The rest of those, Charles kind of gave him when the fight was swaying and hit into his momentum. Again, bad fighting IQ. And he did have 7 minutes and 13 seconds of control time. Now, Charles landed 88 total, 66 of them significant. So 38 more, 22 more significant. He had 1 takedown and 4 attempts in a reversal. But Kyler now extends that losing streak to 3. He's 1-3 since 2024. And Charles extends his winning streak to 3, all at bantamweight. He's now 3-2 since 2024. So what's next? Well, I think Charles and Rob Font would be a banger. 2 strikers going at it. Let's make that happen. And for Kyler, how about Ricky Simone? Then this was all about Mike Malott. Another fight I got wrong. Getting a round 3 TKO over Gilbert Burns, earning him a performance of the night, $100,000 payday with the finish, $125,000. But Captain Canada put on a show. He was composed. He preserved his energy well for a 5-round fight. And when he threw, he was a sniper. You know, Gilbert, size-wise, a lot thicker, a lot smaller fighter, really was just kind of spearing his lead hand forward to launch that big right hand and find that opening with a loaded shot. And he continued to throw bombs, but Mike was able to get out of range as the lengthier fighter and pick his spots to counter. The first round was fairly close. I did think Mike landed the cleaner, more damaging strikes. Gilbert's best strikes throughout the fight, especially in the first round, was his lead calf kick. I mean, he had Mike's leg pretty beat up. The play-by-play team didn't allude to it as much. And I think by mid-round 2, he was a little, not limping, but he was definitely favoring that left leg. And I think he was feeling it, but that was really the only thing Mike had to worry about. Mike was measured and calm, letting the fight come to him. Gilbert tried for some takedowns. A lot of them he kind of gave up on because Mike did have such good defense. But he was all over Gilbert with his takedown defense. Gilbert never really got clean looks. But round 2, Mike had landed some big uppercuts, and they were like scooping, shoveling uppercuts. Gilbert has a good guard, and he would go under the elbow just enough to land a nice pop up on the chin. And by this time, he had Gilbert bloodied up. Gilbert just needed a better way to push Mike back. And his coach, Henry Hooft, one of the best in the business, gave him great coaching advice in the corner, like, hey, we can't just set up bombs. We got to keep throwing something at him. But really, Gilbert at this stage, not being able to take Mike down, he needed to throw more offense, whether it's more of those calf kicks. I think he could have really attacked that more, although Mike did a decent job checking them. Throw some jabs in there, more than just the big bomb, follow it up with a kick or something else. But, hey, Mike let his hands fly more. He put it on Gilbert. And after another lunging uppercut in round 3, rocked Gilbert, started to unload with him down on the mat up against the cage. And I do understand after all the wars and the fighting miles that Gilbert has that he wants to retire. He put his gloves down. He said, I think I'm done. I'm not fully sold that wasn't an emotional decision on a fight skid, not fighting your best. He may want to take some time and maybe he'll come back. It could have just been an emotional decision. But it would be nice for him to come back, get a winnable matchup for a true retirement moment. But he says he wants to coach. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe he's truly retired. Regardless, I fucking love Gilbert Burns. That definitely played a part of why I still picked him in this fight. But this guy's a true warrior, was never able to reach the peak as a champion. But goddamn, he's an ADCC bronze medalist, world champion in no-gi. Came onto the UFC scene in 2014, racked up 3 wins. Started moving up the ranks, lost to Dan Hooker in 2018, and then started looking like a championship contender. Beat Olivier Aubin Mercer, who's really good. Mike Davis, Gunnar Nelson, Damian Maia, Tyron Woodley had a chance at the welterweight championship and lost to Kamaru Usman. Defeated Stephen Thompson, lost to Khamzat Chimaev. Again, I think he won that. Beat Neil Magny, lost to Jorge Masvidal. And then his later years skid to Jack Della Maddalena. Another fight I think he was winning until he got caught with that knee. Bilal Muhammad, Sean Brady, Michael Morales, now Mike Malott. Salute to you, Gilbert Burns. We're losing a lot of legends in the sport these days. But Mike rise to the occasion. I don't think he's a GSP. He's shown potential. I feel like he's underwhelming, but he's starting to put it all together, so the division needs to watch out. Statistically, Gilbert only landed 42 total strikes, 40 of them significant. He was 0 for 7 in takedown attempts. Again, credit to Mike. Mike landed 56 total and significant strikes with 2 knockdowns. So Mike now extends that winning streak to 4. It seems like not that long ago he got kind of checked by Neil Magny. Now look at him. He enters the rankings at number 11. And Gilbert ends his career on a 4-fight losing streak. He is 2-4 since 2023. So what's next? Well, I mean, to be honest with you, there's a ton of options for Mike. Mike is, 32 years old? 34 years old. He's actually a little bit older. You would think there's an opportunity just to rush him in there. I know there's a lot of fights that are matched up. I think him and Gabriel Bonfim would be good. Joaquin Buckley, but they're booked. We could potentially give him Leon Edwards. I don't think we go above that right now. So for me, he's mostly a striker. He can grapple. He's willing to engage. MVP's been complaining that nobody wants to take fights. I think Mike will take that fight. I think it'll be a great fight. And this will be a real big moment for him to get jumped and pole vaulted in the top 15. So I'm going Mike Malott and Michael Venom Page because I think it's realistic and I think Mike will say yes. But yeah, I mean, we didn't break down a lot of fights, but Mike Malott stole the show. Gage Young dominated Thiago. Jasmine skids by. Beautiful performance by Charles Jourdain. Watch out for Marcio Barbosa. Gokum Sarakam looks like a heavyweight contender, and massive comeback win by Jai Herbert. But that sets us up back to the Apex this weekend. UFC Fight Night 116. Prelims at 2 p.m. Pacific, main card 5 p.m. Pacific, all on Paramount Plus. Now, the prelims have some decent names, nothing that jumps off the page. The main card has 6 fun fights with a couple of ranked fights that are major for their divisions. And then, of course, the main event is a ton of fun. But I am previewing this a 5 out of 10. But the UFC's on a hot streak. There is some potential here. And I'll try to talk about that potential in some fights we will not break down. We have Jackson McVeigh taking on Cedricus Dumas. I mean, that just is chaos all over it. That could be a great fight to start the night. We have 12th ranked Mayra Buena Silva taking on Michelle Montag. I think this is a snooze fest. Mayra hasn't looked the same since she tested positive for a substance. We have Talita Alencar taking on Julia Pilastri. We have veteran Davey Grant taking on Contender Series alum Adrian Luna Martinetti. And this is actually in the main card. You know, this is Adrian's UFC debut. Davey's damn near 40 years old. I think this is a fun fight. I didn't think there was enough to break down to really get into the details here. But Adrian was known for fighting the guy that fight last week, blanking on his name, where they just went at each other and almost finished each other like a bajillion times. And Davey Grant's been in his fair share of bangers. And if Adrian Luna Martinetti is a little overzealous and sloppy, Davey will take advantage. That's a fun one. And then recently added due to some fallouts, we have Francis Marshall taking on newcomer Lucas Brennan, who's known for most of his time in Bellator. But Francis Marshall, no slouch, so that should be fun. And then we're kicking it off in the prelims. This was a fight that was made short notice as well. We have Jafel Pastor Filho, 32 years old with a 17-4 record, taking on Cody custom-made Durden, 35 years old with a 17-10-1 record. Now, the fight was literally made right away because Jafel was supposed to fight Lucas Roca. I'm sure Cody reached out and said, I want this fight on short notice. typical Cody fashion, he's coming off a loss a little over a month ago, and he is on a 4-fight skid, so this could potentially be it on short notice. He's willing to take that flyer. Half-Life Filho at 32 years old, though, is no slouch. Cody, I think, is more in desperation mode, probably needing a payday as well. I think Jafel is a tougher test than most for Cody on short notice, and he looked pathetic in his last fight. But breaking this down, Jafel is a Contender Series alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 3-2 since 2023. 11 of his 17 wins are via submission, 5 via knockout, so 16 of his 17 via finish, and 2 of his 4 losses are via submission. Now, Cody has a southpaw stance. He trains out of American Top Team with a brown belt in BJJ. As I mentioned, he's on a 4-fight losing streak, 3-6 since 2023. You got to credit the guy, he's been active. 6 of his 17 wins are via knockout, 6 via submission, so 12 of 17 via finish. And 5 of his 10 losses are via submission. Like I said on top, Jafel's in his prime. He's a well-rounded fighter. He's coming off a really nice victory. And Cody just did not look very good in his last fight. He was outstruck and outgrappled to lower-level competition. I'm not really sure where Cody has a chance to win in this fight. I think Filho is much faster. Cody looked slow last time out. Jafel's more precise. And I think he's more talented with his BJJ and grappling, as Cody actually got out-grappled in his last fight as well. I think Cody's going to come out wild in round 1, try to get a finish, get a bonus. And if that doesn't happen, he's really going to start to fade. And I think Jafel round 2 finish looks really good to me. For that reason, I'm taking Jafel Filho. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. We have Eric McConico, 35 years old with a 10-4-1 record, taking on Rodolfo, the black belt hunter Vieira. Pulling up the odds here. Odds have been all over the place. See what dogs I got. Rodolfo is 36 years old with an 11-4 record. Now, both men are coming off losses. They're at the edge of their primes. If they want any meaningful fights in the UFC and want to continue making good money, they need to get it going. They need to start stacking up wins. So there is a ton of zest, a ton of juice to squeeze here. A lot of lifeline for these men. So I think it turns out to be a fantastic fight. Breaking it down, Eric trains out of the MMA lab here in Phoenix. He's a King of the Cage, LFA, and Tough Enough alum. He's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 1-2 in the UFC. 4 of his 10 wins are via knockout, 3 via submission, so 7 of his 10 wins via finish, and all 4 of his losses are via knockout. He also has a 4-inch reach advantage. Now, Rodolfo has a black belt in BJJ. He won gold in the 2015 ADCC World Championships. He was an IBJJF World Champion in 2011 at his weight class and absolute, which means no limit. In 12, 13, and 14, he was a world champion at his weight class. In 13, he won silver in absolute, and in 14, he won silver in absolute as well. This guy is a grappling machine, the black belt hunter. He has the most arm triangle submissions in UFC history with 4. 9 of his 11 wins are via submission. Now, I think the striking in this fight will be pretty even, but Eric's going to have the speed advantage, and Rodolfo should have the power. Rodolfo obviously has the BJJ advantage, which could look to play a big part, because I think both men do look to mix in takedown attempts, and if Eric can avoid them and avoid bad positions, I think he's in for a win. This is a tough fight to pick. The odds are really high on Rodolfo Vieira, but I'm not as high because his last fight out against Tresean Gore, I wasn't very impressed, and he looked to be slowing down. He's at the latter half of his 30s. For that reason, the sake of picking, I'm taking an underdog. The dog's coming to eat. I'm taking Eric McConico, but I am not putting this on any parlays possible. Then moving into the main card, we have Ryan Superman Spann, 34 years old with a 23-11 record, taking on Marcus Buchecha, 36 years old with a 5-2-1 record. Now, Marcus was supposed to fight Max Jimenez, but he withdrew. So Ryan Spann took this fight on short notice as well. So we've got one fight added, 2 short notice fights on this card. Now, Marcus is still seeking his first UFC victory at 36 years old, and Ryan hasn't fought in almost a year. So it's really kind of unknown and interesting to see how both of these guys look on short notice. But I think that both men are going to try for the finish, and I doubt this goes to the scorecards. Breaking it down, Ryan trains out of Fortis MMA. He has a blue belt in BJJ. He's a Fury FC, Legacy FC, LFA alum and former champion, and a Contender Series 2-time alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak, 2-2 since 2024. 14 of his 23 wins are via submission, 6 via knockout, so 20 of his 23 wins via finish. And a lot of those submissions, he rocks the guy, they go down, he puts him ground and pound, gets a choke in. 5 of his 11 losses are via knockout, and he has a 4.5-inch leg reach advantage. Now, Marcus has a BJJ style. He trains out of American Top Team and AKA. He has a 4th degree black belt in BJJ. This guy's got a grappling resume for the books as well. He won gold in the 2013 ADCC World Championships in silver and absolute. In 2017, he was the world champion in bronze and absolute. Silver in 19 in both his weight class and absolute. In 2012, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, he was an absolute champion, silver in 2018. And in 2019, he was an absolute IBJJF world champion. He's also won gold in no-gi worlds in 2011 at his weight class and at absolute. He's a 1 alum. He's won 1-1 since 2024, and 4 of his 5 wins are via submission. So he was basically dominant at IBJJF from 12 to 19, 13 and 17 in ADCC. Let's see if he ever matched up with Rodolfo. Yeah, they had to have. Let's see if I could quickly pull up who won those. So they had to have been the same weight, I think. Dang, Rodolfo definitely smaller, probably. Well, he defeated Benson Henderson in absolute and no-gi. Lost to Marcus Almeida. Beat Leo Nogueira. Lost to Marcus Almeida. Beat Andre Galvo. Is Marcus Almeida? Yeah, Marcus Buchecha. So he changed his name. It used to be Almeida. So he competed against Rodolfo, and Marcus competed in 2014 World Championships in the gi, and Marcus won 2-0. He also won 2-0 in the World Cup Absolute in the gi in 2014. And lost to him 2-6 in the World Championships Absolute in the gi in 2013. So these guys know each other very well. Marcus Almeida, 2-7, beat him in the gi. So yeah, they faced off many a times. So apparently Marcus is up there quite a bit with the grappling. I mean, this is a dude. He's a 1 alum, and he's won 1-1 since 2014, or 2024, excuse me. And 4 of his 5 wins, of course, via submission. So Ryan has good MMA grappling. There's a difference between guys that can do gi, no gi, even wrestlers. You got to have a kind of different skill set with the cage and play. But Marcus is clearly on a different level with his BJJ. I don't expect Ryan to try to get takedowns unless he knocks Marcus down, jumps on top of him. But Marcus hasn't had to handle the man that's kind of the mass and size of Ryan, especially with the power that he has. You know, Marcus could try to wear on Ryan in the clinch, get him up against the cage. Definitely just needs to try to get out of round 1 because he's coming in on short notice. From there, he could try to take him down. If he does, and he could control him, he has a real chance at dominating Ryan here. But I'm really concerned of how Ryan looks cardio-wise if he does get out of round one. I just don't think Marcus has fought the level of striker that Ryan Spann has. I mean, so Marcus actually competed against Gordon Ryan. Doesn't give me the year. This is an ADCCs, the last ADCC he did, and lost 1-0, but has basically beat everybody else. So, short pro MMA record. He had a draw against Kennedy and Shekwaku. He lost to Martin Boudet. Yeah, I just don't understand how he's the favorite. He's older. Ryan, year off. I'm taking another underdog. The dog's coming to eat. Hoo-hoo. Now, this one's close on the odds. Ryan's like a plus 120 dog. But I am taking Ryan Spann. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. These big guys that come in don't have a ton of experience, are grappling heavy. It doesn't always fare well in the UFC. And Ryan Spann's talented, man. You know, he's still in his prime. I think he gets the job done. Moving on, we have some women's MMA action. We have Norma, the Immortal Dumont. 35 years old with a 13-2 record and the number 3 next to her name, taking on Joselyne La Pantera Edwards. 30 years old with a 17-6 record and the number 11 next to her name. Now for Norma, after 3 consecutive wins over Germaine de Randamie, although she's older, Irene Aldana, and Ketlin Vieira, Norma to me is clearly the number 1 contender for the next title. The problem for her is the division's not very active. Obviously, Amanda announces to come out of retirement to fight Kayla Harrison. That's now been pushed back due to Kayla's neck injury. So I really think she doesn't have another choice but to take another fight unless she doesn't want to get paid and doesn't want to stay active. So to me, this is a tune-up fight. You know, Joselyne is no slouch. She's in her prime, and she's one of the hottest fighters in the division, but there's levels to this game, right? Breaking it down, Norma has a Sanda style. She trains out of Syndicate MMA. She has a brown belt in BJJ, a black belt in Sanda. She's a Jungle Fight alum. She has the most wins in UFC women's featherweight history with 5. She's tied with Megan Anderson and Felicia Spencer for most bouts in UFC women's featherweight history with 6. Featherweight no longer exists. She had the most unanimous decision wins in featherweight history with 4. Most decision bouts in featherweight history with 5. Most total fight time in featherweight history, 1 hour, 31 minutes, 26 seconds. Most takedowns in featherweight history with 9. Longest winning streak in featherweight history with 5. And she's currently on a 6-fight winning streak. Now, Joselyne, she has an orthodox stance. She trains out of King's MMA with a purple belt in BJJ. She's an LFA and King of the Cage alum, former King of the Cage champion. She's on a 4-fight winning streak, 4-1 since 2024. 7 of her 17 wins are via knockout, 5 via submission, so 12 of her 17 wins via finish. And she does have a 3-inch reach advantage. Now, credit to Joselyne. She's really improved over the past few years, and she's on a nice winning streak. But she hasn't faced the level of competition that Norma is at, and Norma should be naturally quite the bigger woman. You know, Joselyne lost to Eileen Perez by being out-grappled, and if Norma chooses to go to that department, I think she should have her way, but I think she could also outstrike Joselyne as long as she pressures and keeps the pace, and she may be looking for one of those new bonuses. You know, if Joselyne can defend takedowns, keep the fight at range, throw enough volume, and pick at Norma, continue to circle, she has a chance on the scorecards, but I think Norma has a dominant performance. I'm taking Norma Dumont. We are putting her on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on, we have Montel Quick Jackson, 33 years old with a 15-3 record and the number 14 next to his name, taking on Yoni Barcelos, 38 years old with a 21-5 record. Now, Montel has been chilling at the back end of the top 15 in the bantamweight division for quite some time. He only fights once a year. He's been doing that since 2021. He finally got some stiff competition against Divas and Figueiredo back in October of last year, and he lost a close fight where neither man really did much. I mean, Montel, he has a ton of finishes, but I really haven't been overly impressed, and veteran Barcelos is going to make him fight, or he's going to tear him up. Yoni is damn near 39 years old, but he has had a resurgence, but Montel has a problem with his length and power. He has plenty of advantages. We'll just see if he takes the chances to use those. Breaking it down, Montel has a purple belt in BJJ. He's a King of the Cage and Contender Series alum. He has the most knockdowns in bantamweight history with 11. He's tied with Chuck Liddell, Quentin Jackson, Josh Emmett, and Cody Garbrandt for most consecutive fights with a knockdown landed in UFC history with 7. He has the most knockdowns landed in a bantamweight fight. He had 4 against JP Buys. He has the second most knockdowns per 15 minutes in UFC bantamweight history at 1.69. He has the second fewest strikes absorbed per minute in bantamweight history at 1.38. He has the highest takedown accuracy percentage in bantamweight history of 56.2%. He has the second fastest knockout and finish in bantamweight history, 18 seconds against Dumont Blackshear. He's on a 1-fight losing streak. He's 3-1 since 2023. 2 of his last 4 fights have been performance of the night. He's showing up. He's showing out. 8 of his 15 wins are via knockout, and he has an 8.5-inch reach advantage. Now, Yoni has a wrestling and BJJ style with a black belt in BJJ. He's an RFA alum and former champ with 2 successful title defenses. He had the 2025 upset of the year against Peyton Talbot. He was an IBJJF champion in 2002, 3, and 6. He's on a 4-fight winning streak. He's 4-2 since 2023, and 8 of his 21 wins are via knockout. Now, for Yoni to win, he's going to just have to pressure and attack Montel with volume, find ways to close distance without getting clipped. He's going to want to make this fight as ugly as possible, mixing in takedowns, clinching up against the cage, dirty boxing. You know, Figgy was able to take Montel down, so I expect Yoni to be able to do that as well. He could wear Montel out. You know, Montel's in the middle of his prime. He should be fresher. But I think Montel does just enough or finally realizes that he has to put out more volume and be more offensive to win decisions if it doesn't end via knockout. But the logic is telling me Yoni's going to find a way. You know, I just got burned by almost a 40-year-old Gilbert Burns. I can't pick another 40-year-old. I could very well see Barcelos just putting on a pace, Montel not doing enough, trying to find that one kill shot and not finding it. But I am taking Montel Jackson, but I am not putting this on any parlays. I think Barcelos is really live at about a plus 150 dog. Moving on. We have Alexander El Gran Chongo Hernandez, 33 years old with an 18-8 record, taking on Rafa Gifted Garcia, 31 years old with an 18-4 record. Now, both of these men have been beating up on older veterans, so now it's time to face 2 men who are in their primes, full of confidence, and the winner gets a chance to fight in the rankings. Both men are well-rounded, very technical, so this should be a very fun, high IQ showdown. Breaking this one down, Alexander trains out of Factory X, a black belt in BJJ, one of the best UFC debuts of all time. He had the 2018 upset of the year against Benil Dariush. He's an RFA and LFA alum. He's on a 4-fight winning streak, 4-1 since 2024, 3-0 since he's moved down to featherweight. 8 of his 18 wins are via knockout. 3 of his 8 losses are also via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. Now, Rafa trains out of the UFC gym Costa Mesa. He's got a blue belt in BJJ. He's on a 2-fight winning streak. He's 3-1 since 2023. And 8 of his 17 wins are via submission. Now, Rafa is more of a volume fighter who lives off his durability and volume. Alexander is more of like a quick twitch fighter who can get takedowns when needed to steal rounds, but he doesn't do a lot with them when he gets them. He really lives off that power and his counter ability. Now, Rafa is coming off his only knockout victory in the UFC, but typically he wears his opponents out and finds finishes later in the fights. Alexander has been a very frustrating fighter to pick because he throws just enough strikes and has success, but he doesn't do enough to clearly win the rounds. It's like very sketchy. You're like, either fighter could have won. A lot of split decisions. Lately he has found his shot, but he hasn't had to go to the scorecards. Thank God, because in 2024 he had 2 split decisions. He won 1, lost 1. I do think Alexander is more battle-tested and ready at this point in his career. He knows his time is now. He did the dieting, got the nutrition and the team to go down in weight classes. I think he's going to be ready to rock. But Rafa is a stiff test, and he's getting a big step up in competition. I think this is war. It could really be a split decision. I hope it goes to a finish. But I am taking Alexander Hernandez. Again, I'm avoiding this on any parlays. This is a toss-up. And that sets us up for the main event of the evening. We get Aljamain Funkmaster Sterling, 36 years old with a 25-5 record and the number 5 next to his name, taking on Youssef, the Moroccan Devil Zalal, 29 years old with an 18-5-1 record and the number 7 next to his name. I feel bad for Aljo. I've met him, huge Sugar Sean fan. When they fought, he has a lot of things to say about it. I feel bad for him. One of the best bantamweight champions in UFC history, having to headline the Apex. I don't agree with that. This is a solid fight. It deserves to be in a stadium. I think he deserves to be in front of stadiums on big cards. At 36, he's at the back half of his career. I think he is still truly a contender. Youssef is getting a massive jump up in competition. He defeated 2 veterans on their last leg, and Josh Emmett and Calvin Kattar of late. Youssef, though, he's had a long road to the UFC. I actually think he fought better competition in his first UFC run. And then he had to earn his way back. This builds kind of a chip on his shoulder that he knows how important this is to his career. This is his moment. He's finally hitting his prime. He's 29 years old. He's clearly confident in his skills. The problem is that the things that Youssef are good at, I think Aljo's better at. And I do think Aljo's going to be much bigger and stronger in the octagon. Breaking this down, Aljo trains out of Sierra Longo Fight Team. He has a black belt in BJJ. He has a D3 wrestling background out of Cortland. He was a 2-time All-American. He's a Ring of Combat alum and former champ, a Cage Fury alum and former champ with 3 successful title defenses. He's been a winner everywhere he's went, and he's always been overlooked. He's the former UFC bantamweight champion with 3 successful title defenses. He's the first UFC champ to win by disqualification. He's tied with Merab Dvalishvili for most consecutive title defenses in bantamweight history with 3. He's tied with Dominic Cruz, Hedin Barao, and Merab for second most title fight wins in bantamweight history with 4. He has the most wins in bantamweight history at 14. He's tied with Dominic Cruz for most wins in UFC WEC bantamweight history with 14. He has the second longest win streak in bantamweight history at 9. The second most control time in bantamweight history, 1 hour, 9 minutes, and 10 seconds behind Merab. He has the third most total strikes landed in bantamweight history, 1,670. He's tied with Takeya Mizugaki for third most decision wins in bantamweight history with 7. He has the third most submission attempts in bantamweight history at 13. He had the 2018 submission of the year against Cody Stamen, the 2022 comeback of the year. He's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 3-2 since 2023. He's 2-1 at featherweight, and 8 of his 25 wins are via submission. Now, Youssef has a kickboxing style. He has an orthodox stance. He trains out of Factory X with a black belt in BJJ. 2 of his last 4 fights have been performance of the night. He's showing up. He's showing out. He's tied with Daniel Pineda, Chaz Skelly, Makwan Amirkhani, and Brian Ortega for second most submissions in UFC featherweight history with 4. He had the 2024 Comeback Fighter of the Year. He's an LFA alum. He's also had 2 UFC stints. He's on an 8-fight winning streak, 5-0 in his second chance with the UFC, and 10 of his 18 wins are via submission. A lot of similarities here. Now, I think this fight's really going to be interesting if it gets into rounds 4 and 5. Youssef has never fought more than 3 rounds. Aljo, of course, has plenty of 5-round experience. He should be able to negate Youssef's wild grappling skills, and I think we'll be able to take Youssef down and control him on his back if he chooses to. I think Aljo potentially can get a submission of his own here. Majority of this fight probably will stay standing, and both of these guys aren't the most technical. They kind of have unorthodox striking, so this could be a very intriguing and exciting fight. I think Aljo still has another year or so fighting at the highest levels. He looked good against a very, very good Movsar Evloev, and Zalal, I just don't think is going to be able to hang. For that reason, I'm taking another underdog. The dog's coming to eat. Ho, ho. I'm taking Aljo. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. It's going to be a fun one. A lot of coin flips. Decent card. Aljo Youssef. Alexander Hernandez. Rafa Garcia. Winner gets top 15. Montel Jackson. Can he keep it against a surging vet in Yoni Barcelos? Norma Dumont. Can she get her title shots shattered by Joselyne Edwards? Superman. Ryan Spann. Marcus Buchecha. 2 big heavyweights. Eric McConico. Rodolfo Vieira. And then Jafel, Filho, Cody, Durden. But that sets us up for next week. We go back to Australia. And this will be an early morning fight here in the States. Prime time in Australia. It is a shallow card, but it's headlined with a banger. Number 1 ranked Jack Della Maddalena. And 5th ranked Carlos Prates. That's episode 143. I'm your host, Shane Gillette. See you next week.